Hello, sweet friends, and welcome or welcome back. Look at us, okay? 2 videos in a row, plus a very exciting announcement video that if you have not watched my most recent upload, please go watch it. I am so excited for what is announced in that video. Plus, if you didn't go and watch it, even if you're not interested in the announcement part of the video, please just go watch the first couple of minutes because me and my friends put together just the most fun little intro. It was a blast to put together, and I just think it turned out so well. Shout out to Lauren for her awesome editing skills. But I think it just turned out so good and it makes my heart so happy. So if you haven't had a chance to go watch that, please do. But look at us. Okay, we are so back, baby. I am so excited to be here. And today is the promised video of the books that I loved while I was away from the internet. So that's a little misleading. I wasn't away from the internet completely, but I have not been posting on my Bookstagram or on YouTube for a little over, actually well over a year now. And I really wanted to share with you guys some of the books that I loved while I was away. Now, sharing every single book that I read while I was away would have been way too long of a video. Honestly, even the books that I loved, if I had shared every book that I loved and enjoyed while I was away, that would have taken way too long. But what I did was I went through my fable of recent reads since I have been away. If I shifted, I apologize. I had to go let my dog out. So anyways, what I was saying though is that I tried to pick the books that stirred my soul in a way that it's still stirring about today. Those are the kinds of books that I want you guys to go and read, and those are the kind of books that I want to gush about. So that's what I did. I went through and I picked just a couple of handfuls to talk to you guys about today, but I also thought that this would be a good opportunity to share kind of my reading taste, and that way anybody who is new to my channel can kind of see what stories I like to read, how I read them, and maybe decide if we have overlapping taste and things like that. Without further ado, let's talk about books, besties. So I have run the gamut of genres. I read a little bit from every genre that I can think of. I'm sure that there are ones that I don't read much of, but there are books from every genre though that I could say that I enjoy. So you will get a super wide variety here on my channel, but the biggest thread between the stories from every genre that I read is that they are going to be stories that speak to the soul, okay? I am a big believer that once upon a time is the language of the human heart, okay? And stories matter because they are truly what forms us. As human beings, that is how we were created by our Creator. We were created to be affected by story, and they form us. One thing you can be sure about, no matter what genre I am reading, I am going to be looking for the whatsoevers in every single story. That is whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is pure, whatever is right, whatever is lovely, whatever is excellent, whatever is praiseworthy. That is what I'm going to be looking for. That is Philippians 4:8, and that is truly my mission in life, okay, is to find those whatsoevers in any and everything around me because they all point me back towards Jesus. So that is what you can look forward to on my channel. Again, no matter what I am doing or reading, that's what we're about here. So let's get started. The first genre that I'm gonna start with is my first love, which is mysteries, okay? If you've been around a while, you know that mysteries are my love language, okay? They are my catnip and I love them so much, so you will see plenty of mysteries on this channel. But today I actually only have 3 to share with you. And one of them is one that is no stranger to my corner of the internet. But I will say I do think that a lot of people read it and did not love it quite as much as I did. I think like overall, it did not get the best ratings. Now from my friends in this space, I feel like that have read it, have really enjoyed it as well. So I feel confident sharing it with you guys since it's not me alone that loved it. But that is You Are Fatally Invited by Andy Pliego. It has been a long time since I read a new to me or new mystery author that really gripped me and made me so excited for a new name in the genre. I feel like there are some staples in this genre that have been doing it for a really long time, and to break through their expertise as well as so many new authors constantly writing in this genre to stand out and really grip me, I don't know, I was just very impressed by the fact that this is her debut novel, and it gripped me and it had me enthralled. The mystery was so well done. This book follows a cast of characters that are all mystery authors. It is a closed cast mystery or a locked room mystery. However, you guys, there's a bunch of different terms for it, but all of the mystery authors are invited to a mysterious island where I'm sure you can only guess what begins to happen, because who has invited them is somebody with an axe to grind with every single one of them. Like I said, the mystery was so well done. The characters were extremely well written, and I was invested like from the very beginning in what was going on, what was gonna happen. Andy kept me guessing, but my favorite part about this book is the way that she was able to very seamlessly weave in themes of redemption and forgiveness into a murder mystery. That is just not something that's done super often, and I do think that it has to do with the fact that Andy Pliego is a Christian. She has a Christian worldview, and so she's writing from that perspective, and I just love that. And I'm a very, very big believer that art itself belongs to the church. Our creator created art, and that we should be taking it back. Okay, that is my hot take. And so when I find an author that is writing in the mainstream space and I know that they have a Christian worldview, I am all about supporting them. So it just helps that this was a fantastic book and she's an amazing writer. So be sure to get out, read this book, and support her. The next mystery is gonna be no shock to a lot of you, and it is a continuation of a series. But while I was away, I read the 4th Thursday Murder Club book. This is The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman, and Richard Osman is just such an incredible writer. I could talk to you guys about the mysteries in every single one of these books, and they are great, okay? They are great mysteries that I enjoy reading and solving alongside our main characters, but our crew, our main characters, are really the reason why I show up to every single page. And this book in particular wrecked me. Okay, the discussions of aging and friendship as you get older, friendship in general, the way that these characters love each other in a phase of life that so often goes unseen, untalked about, and underappreciated, I just love it, okay? And the 4th one was no exception. Like I said, I cried like an absolute baby. Sidebar, I think it's very important that I say, just because I talk about a book or I recommend a book doesn't necessarily mean that it has my full stamp of approval. Every single bit of content in it is a-okay with me. So I am just giving that disclaimer. There is something in particular in this book that I would disagree with. I can't really talk about it because it would be a major spoiler. But that being said, I also feel like it really added to this story, and it definitely makes you stop and think about really hard topics that maybe we aren't touched with all the time. And so I just really appreciated that Richard Osman is always able to make me stop, appreciate life, appreciate friendship, find the beauty in aging, and make me laugh the whole way there. Okay, the last mystery is more of a sci-fi mystery, and I am so late to this train. Okay, I'm aware that most of you watching this have probably already read this book, but I couldn't not talk about it in this video because the way I still think about this book is kind of crazy to me, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I know this book came out, gosh, I don't even know when. Let's see, back in 2016. Okay, so I am 10 years late to the game, but I'm so glad I arrived to the party. One thing I really appreciate about the way Blake Crouch writes sci-fi is that it is comprehensible, okay? Like, you're learning things. I felt like I learned a lot reading this book. The overall concepts, I can tell that he does a lot of research into them before he writes a book, but he writes about it in a way that you're able to actually grasp the concepts and it doesn't read like a textbook. Also, the mystery in this book, like the thrilling aspect of this book, was so gripping, okay? It was so gripping. And it does help that I picked this up during a season when I had gone down a really big quantum physics rabbit hole, and that is a very big part of this story. So in it, you are following a professor who is kidnapped and drugged one day, and when he wakes up from this state, he is strapped to a gurney surrounded by people that he has no idea who they are. And in the life that he wakes up to, his wife is not his wife. his son has never been born. He accomplished something in his professional career that he is really not sure what exactly it is that they're telling him he has accomplished. And this book is his journey to try to get his life back and to try to figure out exactly what the heck is going on. It is so much fun. Like I said, extremely thrilling and fast-paced. As far as content, if I remember, there's mild language, and if I remember correctly, one closed door scene. I don't remember it being open door. So sorry, it has been a while since I've read these books. So there is going to be a little bit of a lag here on the content, but just be sure to look it up. I'm sure that you can find it somewhere. But that being said, if sci-fi is your thing, if you haven't read this one yet, even if sci-fi isn't your thing, I really think that you could get into this book because it is just written for a general audience. Also, quantum physics is bonkers to read about as a Christian, just to read about how much we have advanced scientifically, and yet we still don't know so much, you know? And it's kind of funny because as a Christian, you're like, you don't know, but like, I kind of know. Like, I might not be able to explain it to you, but like, I know. So anyways, that's fun. And this book was a great time. Okay, next, I'm gonna do my one fantasy that is on this list, and this book was such a pleasant surprise. I actually put off reading this book for a long time because I knew I was gonna love it. I knew that I was gonna love it. But for some reason, that intimidates me sometimes. That is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And guys, this book, it still makes my heart smile so much. This is kind of a cross between The Mummy meets a mystery novel meets a fantasy novel. It is kind of all of these things rolled into one. In this, you're following a girl whose parents are world travelers, they are researchers, and so they are not home very often. And she gets left behind a lot with her aunt and her cousins, and she misses them desperately. But one day she gets word that they have actually tragically passed away, and she has inherited their entire fortune, and she has been left with a mysterious guardian that she knows very little about. And so she travels to Egypt to try to piece together their death because she's not given a ton of details. And man, it's just such a fun ride. There's also a little bit of a romance in this with her guardian's assistant. Her guardian is an archaeologist, and so you get kind of all of that fun academic side of this. And yeah, I just had so much fun with this book. The atmosphere of it was just a blast being set in Egypt. It definitely made me want to pick up more books that are set in Egypt because man, just the feels of this, the way that Isabel Ibanez wrote it, the culture that you get in this book is just so much fun. It is fantasy, but it's not super heavy on the fantasy elements. I felt like the magic system, kind of the world building, if you will, was really light and accessible if you are not regularly a fantasy reader. And I cannot wait to read the next one. I already have it on my shelf, and I think it will be coming soon because I loved this. Okay, let's do some contemporary fiction next. The first one is one that I actually very recently read, like right before I came back with my last vlog. I finished this book, and oh my goodness, okay, it was so heart-wrenchingly good. And that is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I am going to head up this review with please check trigger warnings for this, okay? But that being said, I actually picked this up right when something hit the news, or rather did not hit the mainstream news, which was infuriating. But there was a very big something going on that was being talked about a lot on the internet. Some files, some emails, if you know what I'm talking about, okay? And in this book, it does deal with SA. And all of that was kind of just like so heavy on my mind and my heart when I picked this book up that I actually thought I am not going to be able to read this book right now. But a testament to the way that Frederick Bachman wrote these characters, wrote this story. I wrote this in my Fable review, but it was literally like when I would put it back on the shelf, the characters were like screaming at me to finish their story. I don't know how else to describe it, but I was like, I have to finish their story. It was almost like in a really weird, deep way, somehow finishing this story was going to help me process the injustice that was happening in the real world, if that makes sense. Even though it was really hard to read at the time. So the timing of all of this probably did really enhance my reading experience of this, but I genuinely feel like this is a very important story to be read if you can handle it. Like I said, please know that this Fredrik Backman, to my knowledge, is not a Christian. This is not a Christian book. It's not written from that perspective. So obviously there are way different ways that I personally would pray that this would be handled in the real world, but this is the way that the real world would handle situations. And there's themes of justice and standing up and saying the thing out loud that needs to be said, even if it means that you're gonna lose everything. The themes of courage, the themes of friendship, the themes of parenthood, like there are just so many points of this book that I feel like are really raw and made me stop and think about things that I normally would try to not ever think about. Okay, so that is my stamp on this book. Check triggers. Please go into it knowing that if you need to set it down, just set it down. But if you can, I do think it's a very important story, and I'm so excited to read more of Fredrik Backman. I'm excited to continue to see where he takes these characters and this little hockey town, because I didn't even tell you what this is about. This is primarily about this town where hockey is like the crux of it. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere, and hockey is kind of all that it has, and it's all that it's ever been known for. And so hockey is the cornerstone of this community. It kind of revolves around hockey team players, their friends, their parents, people in town, the coaches. There's a wide cast of characters, but you never ever once get confused because the way Fredrik Backman writes them, they all have their own voice that's so distinct. So yes, okay, that is kind of a rough synopsis, but like I said, I still think about this book today. Okay, I'm sorry once again if I shifted. My battery died. I apparently have been talking for too long, so we're gonna speed it up, okay, because I still have a bunch of books I want to get through. But the next literary fiction, excuse me ma'am, she's not supposed to be up there, but we're gonna let it ride, is Tea with Elephants by Robin Jones Gunn. This book was so much fun. Experience made even better by the fact that I buddy read this with my bestie Keisha. This is the first in the Suitcase Sisters series. That is a mouthful. But this follows two best friends who are now in their 30s, I believe, and they've been friends since they were teenagers. They met at, I believe, like a missionary type camp as teenagers and became very fast friends. They live in different states, so life has kind of taken them in different directions, but they've remained very close. And their teenage dream of traveling to Africa is realized, and they're able to travel together to Africa. And so that is this story. Again, Africa is not a place that I read very many stories set in, and I loved it. This book made me want to go to Africa so bad, like so bad. But the best part about this book was absolutely the friendship between these two. They both are carrying some heavy things from their real life that they haven't yet confided in one another about. And I really appreciated the way that she wrote their friendship walking through those things, always pointing each other back to Jesus in how to deal with those situations. But also I really appreciated the issues themselves, because they were things that I just don't feel like you hear Christian fiction novels talking about very often. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this. And like I said, I still think about going to Africa all the time because of this book. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, this is a fantastic book. It is relatively short. Like I don't even think it's 300 pages if I remember correctly. I absolutely will be continuing in this series. Looking at you, Keisha. So the next books that I'm gonna do are nonfiction. The first is a tiny little essay book, okay? This is super teeny tiny, and I actually have this essay in a larger collection, but I loved this essay in particular so much that I wanted it in its own little form. This is the Penguin Modern edition, and I love it so much. But this is called Why I Am Not Going to Buy a Computer. And if you know me in real life or on the internet, or if you're just getting to know me, know this about me. We all know how I feel about technology, and I understand the irony of this, sitting in front of a camera, posting online about books that I love. But in general, me and technology are really not on the same page. Primarily, this advanced age of the internet that we've found ourselves in. And so Wendell Berry, who is an incredible writer, when I tell you after I read this, I I knew. I was like, Wendell Berry is gonna be a soul author for me. Some authors just get it. And so I'm so excited to dig into some of his fiction works and a lot of his other essays. But Wendell Berry is definitely known for his love of nature, his love of a slower paced life, and his advocacy for Christians to stand up and steward the earth well and what community actually looks like. I don't know. I just am obsessed with the man. And this book is an essay that he published all about why he was not going to buy a computer and why he was going to continue to write on a piece of paper, and then his wife was going to type it on a typewriter. And then the rest of the book is actually like responses, which I thought was fascinating, but they were responses that other journalists and writers published in other publications in response to his essay. And so there's essays in response to his and then his response back. That was confusing, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. It was fantastic. If you've ever felt like, do I even like technology? Pick this up, you won't regret it. This was like $3, okay? This was like $3 or $4 on Amazon, so fantastic. Next up is a book that I fairly recently finished. I finished this probably 3-ish months ago, and that is Where Prayer Becomes Real by Kyle Strobel and John Coe. So I personally found this book incredibly transformational in my prayer life, and I felt like the way that they wrote about prayer was in a way that really made you stop and reflect about your own prayer life, not to just sweep by it or keep doing the things that you've always done because that's how you've always done them, but to really stop and reflect about your prayer life and different ways to enhance it and make it more of a daily rhythm and a deeper rhythm. And I really, really loved this book. And at the end of every single chapter are practices that they walk you through and that they challenge you to do. And yeah, I think if you really dedicate to it and you do them and you read this book slowly and don't try to rush your way through it, but actually do the things that they're telling you to do for an extended period of time, not just one day, but like I feel like I kind of read one chapter a week and just really dug into the practices and tried to make them a daily rhythm. And man, yeah, I really, really loved this book. So if you're looking for a book on prayer, I highly recommend this one. Okay, and my last nonfiction that I'm gonna talk about is so good, guys. It's so good, and that is Room for Good Things to Run Wild by Josh Nadeau. Man, some books just speak to you on the deepest level, and this is one of them. The way that he writes is so incredibly unique. Like, I don't even honestly know how to explain it to you guys in a way that does it justice, but it's part memoir, but part walking you through how to make your everyday life as a Christian sacred. So the full title is Room for Good Things to Run Wild: How Ordinary People Become Everyday Saints. And he really challenges you to slow down and challenges you to make everything that you do flow from a place of your faith, not in a reactive way, not in a legalistic way, but in the most natural way as saints, just living your life enchanted, if you will. He gets really raw about his own story and his own journey to where he's at now in his faith. He grew up in a tradition that was fairly, not even really legalistic, but just disenchanted. He ends up becoming an alcoholic, and he talks about that in this. Just really fantastic. And like I said, the way that he writes is incredibly poetic and so captivating, and also like really powerful and transformational. So that's that. Okay, and we are gonna end with classics, okay? Because I only have 2 to talk about. I know I've been talking for a long time. If you're still here, thank you so much for staying, because the last book that I'm gonna talk about is truly just the bee's knees. I am so thankful to say that I have fallen back in love with classics, and they are classics for a reason. And if we're gonna talk on my channel about reading stories that have depth and make us really think, I have a list of questions that I really try to think about and answer through with every single book that I read, and that has developed from reading classics, and it has enhanced my reading of contemporary fiction in a way I couldn't have imagined. So yeah, let's just not forsake the old for the new and for fast literature, which is just like fast fashion. I feel like publishers are just pressuring these authors to like pump out novels, and it's affecting the quality. And like I said, stories form us, so let's make the stories that we're taking in be things that are gonna form us well. Classics, in my experience, have always done that. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Far From the Madding Crowd by Tom Hardy. This was actually my first big toe dip back into classics. I had the best reading experience with this. I actually read it with an online book club of like-minded Christian women, and man, it was just a good time digging into this together, like really getting to the meat and the bones of it. But this book follows a woman named Bathsheba, and she is a female farmer, which was very uncommon in the day that this was written. And she becomes friends with a man named Gabriel Oak, who kind of tries to help her with her farm, teach her about farming, but they form a really good, deep relationship, and Gabriel falls in love with Bathsheba. He proposes and she denies the proposal, but he continues to stay her friend, and it was just so beautiful. The story itself, but also the imagery of the setting was just captivating, and it put me right on the farm. Okay, it put me right on the farm. Also, the way that faith is talked about. So Thomas Hardy, if you do some research, he had a very interesting like relationship to faith, but the way that he talks about faith in this book, and then also kind of the underlying themes of the names of the characters, like there's just a lot of depth to this book, and so many intentional choices that Thomas Hardy made that once you start digging in, you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot get enough of this. And it makes me very excited to pick up more Thomas Hardy in the future. Okay, this is my last book. I've been talking for a very long time. Thank you so much for still being here. This book, guys, it has changed me. And when I said that, my poor husband, who's not a reader, did not quite understand. He wanted like the practical, like how did that change you? Like how did that book change you? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like it rearranged my soul. He didn't get it, and that's okay. That's okay, because non-readers don't have to get it, but you guys get it. And that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Guys, when I tell you that this book just saw me, if you guys have ever read a book where you just felt so seen in it, that was this book for me. In this, you're following Helen Graham and Gilbert Markham. They meet when Helen moves into kind of an abandoned estate, and nobody in the community really knows what her story is, where she came from, why she's living there alone with her son, which, if you know, was kind of taboo in itself in this time. She's a very mysterious woman, and she meets Gilbert, and they begin to develop a friendship, and Gilbert falls in love with her, and she keeps pushing him away, and he cannot figure out why. A little ways into the book, she ends up giving him her diary, and she says, if you want to understand, read this. So the majority of the novel is actually told through diary entries, and it explains her story, her life, how she got to that point of moving into that estate with her son, and her story is just so touching. The themes of forgiveness in this, the themes of the strength of a woman. Oh my gosh, okay, the strength of a woman, and the strength of a woman of faith. Okay, of a godly woman. I cannot stress enough how much I loved Helen's character, and I felt very seen in Helen's character. While I don't identify necessarily with the situation that she walked through, her as a person, I identified with so much. The inner struggles that she walks through, the personality traits that she exudes, just everything about her I loved. So yes, please, 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 please read this. This is like required. This is on Caitlin's required reading list. If you want to know Caitlin, you have to read this book, okay? Okay, friends, we have made it to the end. Thank you so much for still being here, okay? This was a long one, but I was so happy to share these books with you. They really were stories that have stuck with me. If you have read any of these and you loved them as well, please let me know down in the comments. And if I talked you into reading any of these, please let me know what those are down in the comments. But I love you guys, and until next time, bye.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it